and Sister Susie fans will be delighted to know she's returned with a fresh drinks trolley, restacked after her week off. And what have you stacked it with, Suze?
Indeed. Well, I thought I'd share today. It's quite cold today, so I thought everyone should have a very warming, delicious hot chocolate. I've gone for a 50% darker milk from Peru.
Yes.
From Ruby Hue. And if you've got a milk frother, you can make it even more delicious.
Oh, very good. You want one of those?
Yes, I'll have a hot chocolate.
Okay, we'll take one of those.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good to have you back. So, today's confession comes from, well, it's signed a former nurse.
Okay.
So, thanks, a former nurse, for sending in this. Dear Monsignor Mayo and the Fellowship of Forgiveness, I feel sufficient time has elapsed for me to bare my soul and beg forgiveness for a sin I committed over 30 years ago, shortly after I had started my second year as a student nurse. I had failed part of the exam at the end of the first year, and along with 3 or 4 of my cohorts, this is July 89 intake, had gathered in the common room of the School of Nursing. The intervening few weeks had been consumed with full-time shifts on a ward, weekly meetings with our personal tutors, and practice questions, essay style, with a 45-minute time limit to prepare for the resit. There was little time to participate in the active social life of the nurse home.
Okay.
Well, you should have passed.
Priorities.
One of the senior tutors, writes a former nurse, let's call her Sister Trunchbull, collected us from the common room and led us to the boardroom and seated suitably spaced to prevent copying someone else's answers. The answer paper was issued and the exam paper was placed down on our desk. You are responsible adults, she started. You must answer 3 of the 5 questions. The exam will last 2 hours and 15 minutes. Read all the questions before you start your answers. You may leave the room to use the bathroom. You may not communicate with the other candidates or share information. The exam will start at 09:30 and end at 11:45. I, says Sister Trunchbull, have other things to attend to and will return at the end of the exam.
Okay.
As you are all responsible adults studying for a position of responsibility, I am trusting you all to maintain exam conditions whilst I am not here. She turned and looked at the clock above the whiteboard, and as it was about to reach 9:30, and as it clicked on, she said, "You may begin." We all turned over our question papers and started to read the questions. And as we were reading, she left the room. Within 30 seconds of the heavy fire door closing, we all looked up and promptly ignored all of the rules that Sister Trunchbull had just told us. We realised that the accumulation of knowledge from our practice questions meant that between us, we knew all the answers. Do they not say that cooperation is one of the greatest human skills? I think they do. As responsible adults, which we'd just been told we were, we definitely didn't communicate and coordinate our answers and proceed to write our essay-style answers, describing how we care for various patients. We definitely had no coordination and we definitely had no cooperation. We definitely said no. There was a definite no to, don't write that, write this. Also no to, that's great, thanks very much. What would you say for question 6? Towards the end of the exam, someone stated that they were running out of time and needed another 5 minutes, at which point we definitely didn't all agree, being responsible adults. With less than 10 minutes to the end of the exam and being a responsible adult, I stood up, walked to the front of the boardroom, stood on the chair, took the clock off the wall and turned it back 5 minutes. I replaced the clock and returned to my seat. With 3 minutes left to the original end time, Sister Trunchbull enters the room, probably having a fag or something. Looked at the clock, then at her watch, back at the clock, frowned. She took a seat at the front of the room, sat in silence till the clock said 11:45, when she said, "The exam is over, pens down." She collected the papers and informed us that our personal tutors would contact us within a week with our results. And needless to say, we all passed with very similar scores. I should seek forgiveness from Sister Trunchbull, but as this was 35 years ago and she was about to retire back then, I'm fairly certain she won't hear this. Also, they've demolished the hospital.
Unrelated note, hopefully.
And they've built houses on the site. Though I don't think this was because of what we did.
Okay.
No, I don't think you cheating in an exam. I don't think they demolished the hospital necessarily. But anyway, I am imagining that Sister Susie isn't going to... I mean, she'll be broadly sympathetic with the former nurse, but then have to come down on the side of the law.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, I don't like exams, and I probably would have thought similar as a student, but as the sister said, you're responsible adults, and especially if you'd failed the first time, maybe you should have, made sure that you were doing it properly to pass. And to be frank, I think you took it too far changing the clock time, so no forgiveness from me.
Brother Matthew.
Well, I'm definitely going to forgive here. I mean, I've always got a bit of a soft spot for the exam invigilator confessions. They're always very, very good, very fertile territory. But, at least those invigilators turned up. Not like Mrs. Trunchbull. Just go away for 2.5 hours. How does that work?
Busy.
Exactly. And also, if it's that important that they're all suitably qualified and know their stuff, then would you mind spending that time in the same room as them? Because, then you're going to know that they are responsibly qualified. So, definitely forgiven.
Here's the people's verdict, please. What do you say to a former nurse? Forgiven or not? 61054, first word is Simon. 61054, first word is Simon. Before we go any further, it's the people's verdict for tonight's confession, which came from a former nurse and a tale of student nurses who had failed the exam. So it was resit time and the invigilator. Except that the invigilator decides to leave the student nurses to their own devices. And as grown adults, and in full confidence they would behave as such, they absolutely didn't, and they just shared a few answers and added some extra time to the clock, and so on. The people's verdict, here it comes.
So everyone forgives tonight. Samantha says, forgiven. As Matt said, the Trunchbull lady walked out on a 2.5-hour exam. What did she expect? Of course people will help each other out. Gary in Leeds says, forgiven. They all combine their knowledge, which is a good thing. In my trade as an electrician, I was always told, if in doubt, ask. And Sue says, as a nurse who started training in 1989 and failed her exams first time, I completely forgive. I don't think I was in the same exam. I failed because I didn't write nurse often enough. And once this was added, I passed. Still nursing, 36 years later. Love the show.
Oh, well, thank you, Sue. Just by adding the word nurse.
Add the word. Just make sure you say the word nurse a lot. That's my advice.
Very good. Top advice there. Thank you very much. Your confession, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. 5:47, Greatest Hits Radio, and it's confession time. But before we get there, of course, we need a little bit of a reward, and something from the drinks trolley would go down rather nicely. Let's see what producer Susie has chosen from her extravagant bar selection. What are we going with?
Well, I'm going with a very lovely Spanish one, so Matt can correct me on the pronunciation here, but it's an Albarino white wine, and it's Pelicus Galicia?
Galicia, yeah.
Galicia. Yeah, there you go.
What's
It's
all
delicious.
that about?
From Galicia.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So, okay, very good. Well, we'll have a couple of glasses after the show.
Why not?
Obviously. Thank you very much. Okay, so today's confession comes from Baz from the Black Country. Thanks, Baz. Is this okay? Yeah, well, I don't know.
Well, let's hope so.
Okay.
Okay.
Bit late now.
Dear.
Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie. I am Baz from the Black Country. I do feel I should stress, before we embark on this tale together, that these were different times. However, forgiveness is what I seek. And saying it's different times is not really much of a defence, I don't think. But anyway, let's see where we go. This tale begins about 35 years ago in the late 1980s, somewhere in the darkest lower lanes of Shropshire, in a little place called Claverley, to be precise, the one-time home of Mary Whitehouse, who I fear would not perhaps be impressed by my antics. However, older and possibly wiser, I am here to seek forgiveness. Living in the area we did, there was no useful bus services on an evening, and so as money was limited, whenever our motley crew went out to frequent the local drinking establishments, one of us would be nominated as the driver. Frequently, when the money had run out, we might occupy ourselves by just having a drive around the lanes before finally making our way home, and this often coincided with chucking out time. One evening, we were on our usual excursion when a beautiful sight appeared in front of us. It was nothing less than a 1979 Jaguar XJX in dark brown, known as DSB at the time. a detail I'm unaware of or can explain.
Yeah.
Whilst we marvelled at it, we were soon distracted by the strange driving style of the owner. Weaving from left to right, we suspected that the driver might be a little worse for wear, and we rightly were concerned for the occupant. So as good citizens, we decided to attract his attention. This is where the story takes a slightly darker turn. One of the motley crew had recently come into possession of a magnetic work light, which another member of our crew had creatively wrapped in what I can only explain as blue cellophane. And it was...
Oh, right, okay.
So it's a basic Blue Peterish creation, but effective nonetheless.
Yeah.
Winding down the window, we popped the light onto the roof of our car and switched it on. Blue flashing light filled the air. So you can imagine our shock when the Jaguar DSB XJ6, upon noticing aforementioned lights, didn't slow down, but in fact accelerated and started to go faster as if to get away from us. What on earth was going on? Bouncing through the lanes from verge to verge, we realised that this driver was not interested in slowing down, and so we unwisely decided that we should... wisely we decided we should not pursue any further.
Yeah.
This is obviously the correct decision.
Yes.
Unfortunately, by the time we realised this, the XJS lurching around in front of us suddenly took a nosedive down to the left and into a ditch.
Oh, dear.
Mud and grass were flying everywhere. We stopped the car and then, exploding out of the driver's door, appeared a man who can only be described as a cross between Arthur Mallard, Bill Maynard and Pat Roach, ask your parents.
Yes.
Wearing John Motson's sheepskin coat. Again, another useful TV reference. Cigar hanging from his mouth. He did not look happy, and he came careering towards us, shaking his fist. Well, at this point, we decided to make a hasty retreat and speedily reverse back up the lane, swiftly turning the car around and escaping Sweeney style. Get your trousers on, you're nicked.
Yes.
Our last view of him was in the rear-view mirror. Bright red face, smoke coming from his cigar and his ears, with fist still waving in the air. With our windows down, we heard him yelling, "I'd have got away with it if it wasn't for you meddlesome kids. Come back, you need a good talking to. You wait till your father gets home. I'll tell his reverence."
Yes.
And other catchphrases from assorted sitcoms. I think it was something like that, but that was the general gist of what he was saying. Baz concludes, "Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie, I ask not for forgiveness for our actions, for our misspent youth, from the said sheepskin-wearing Man Mountain for the unintentional ditching of the DSB XJ6, who frankly should have known better, and found himself a nominated driver, but from his poor wife, who I imagine had to listen to him berating and moaning forever about the delinquent students who had forced his pride and joy off the road and causing him to walk home." However, I suppose you'd have to say walking home is probably a safer thing for him, based on the way he was driving. So I'm not sure what Sister Susie's going to make of all that.
Well, I feel like, they were trying to do good. They noticed him swerving, but the Del Boy character doesn't sound very nice either, so he should go in the bin. But you shouldn't have had that blue light. That's only going to cause trouble. And,
Correct,
it could have gone much worse and someone could have been hurt. So danger.
Oh,
blue lights. Yes.
Can't find the
danger.
No, I can't find that thing.
No.
But anyway,
would have worked so well.
Okay, Brother Matthew, what do you say?
I'm going to forgive.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's that driver's fault, isn't it? He's the one in control of his car, or not in control, and it ends up in a ditch. That's your fault, sunshine, and no amount of sheepskin wearing and cigar chomping is going to get you out of that one. And even if they do have a torch with a bit of blue cellophane on it, not enough in my book. Pow! So for all of those reasons, with your cigars and your sheepskin and the danger high voltage, I choose to forgive.
Okay, says the people's verdict, please. What do you say to Baz from the Black Country? This is the most important thing. It's the people's verdict. Yours is the only opinion that matters. But before the news, we had an interesting confession from Baz from the Black Country. A story of a fake blue and white flashing light, a DSB XJ6 and a ditch. Oh, yes, and a man in a sheepskin coat who wasn't very impressed. People's verdict, here it comes.
Gotta forgive this, says Rick in Norwich. The bloke was driving recklessly and as soon as he saw the blue light, sped up. Sounds like a wrong un to me. But Tom says not forgiven. You can't have a blue light in your car. No wonder the car swerved into a ditch. But Sarah in Wadebridge says forgiven. The man was driving badly and deserved to swerve into a ditch.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the verdicts. If you have a confession, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. That's a very good thing. I might consult that once I'm finished right here. However, we have some important business to attend to, and it's going to be an interesting confession because it's a little... Well, when it arrived, Susie said, I don't think so.
Oh, really?
But anyway,
Okay.
we've kind of rejigged it a little.
Right.
And see where we go. Anyway, something from the drinks trolley, please, before we start.
Yes, I've gone from a very, very modern pet nat, or petulant natural, which is a naturally sparkling wine made by they put it in the bottle before it's fermented so
Right.
that it finishes and it's naturally sparkling, and it's called Ancestral Conviscat from Catalonia.
Okay, that sounds intriguing, though I think for this confession, a stiff brandy. Thank you very much indeed.
Right.
probably.
Wow.
Today's, all the names have been changed.
I'll bet they have.
Yes. Today's confession comes from Max, Simon, Matt, Holly, Susie, and the rest of the collective. This confession is unusual in that it wasn't a one-off event. In fact, it lasted nearly 4 years. I used to be rather proud of the event I'm going to describe, but I've now grown to think I might have been out of order. You think? I really think I'm not. And then, as if there's any doubt about this, his next sentence is, I really think I'm not getting a lot of forgiveness from the girls. Lol.
Oh, right. I think I know which way we're going.
Back in 1977, I was 17, I started work for a builder as an apprentice. Before long, I met his daughter. We became friendly and started dating. We enjoyed a wholesome relationship and I became close to her family. Okay. My girlfriend's mother was very attractive and I was in admiration of her dark hair
What? Oh, my.
and wonderful
Oh, no.
personality.
Wonderful personality.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's father was rather arrogant and treated both his daughters and their mother with some contempt. My girlfriend's name was Lorna, not really, and the other daughter was Flora, also not really. Anyway, I digress. My girlfriend's father enjoyed golf 2 to 3 times a week, and he would be away all afternoon on the days he played. My girlfriend's mother asked me one evening if I would like to join her for lunch, while her husband, we'll call him Frank, was playing golf. This happened a few times and we grew quite close. Every time he played golf, I would spend a few hours with my girlfriend's mum
Oh, what?
playing Cluedo,
Yep.
and then see my girlfriend in the evening after a hard day at work. This was most obviously awful, but rewarding behaviour. Now, my girlfriend's sister, Flora, started smiling a lot at me, and we too became very friendly.
Oh, dear me.
Terrible behaviour.
Especially on the evenings that her elder sister spent with friends. In fact, one evening, Flora even invited one of her friends to join us for a game of Cluedo. This chain of events lasted for nearly 3.5 years.
3.5 years?
Until one day, Flora blurted out to her sister that I'd been seeing her for Cluedo sessions while she was with her friends. This ended my relationship with both sisters.
Yeah.
However, their mother insisted on seeing me for Cluedo for another 9 months.
Oh my goodness.
I've often asked myself, what was the initial attraction to a lady twice my age? See Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate for details. Now, says Max, I appreciate this was irresponsible, and I have learnt the error of my... No, you haven't. I don't even know why you even tried to put that line in. How are we doing?
Oh, dear.
So, final paragraph.
Yeah.
I seek forgiveness. No, you don't. Firstly, from my girlfriend for cheating on her with her sister. Secondly, from my girlfriend's sister for cheating on her with her mother. Thirdly, from my girlfriend's father for seeing his wife while he played golf. And most importantly, from my colleagues who did extra work while I enjoyed my lunch break with the wife of the boss.
So he wasn't even working? Oh, my.
Well, he was playing Cluedo.
Well, I get that now. Dear,
Although I'm asking for forgiveness, I have had a wry smile remembering all those wonderful years of learning the rules of Cluedo.
Cluedo, yeah. Now we get it.
Kind regards always from Max. I'm not sure the smart speaker is going. That's the rules. If we use yours, you get a smart speaker. That's fine. Let's just find out where the verdict is going as far as if there is much doubt. Sister Susie, what do you say?
It's despicable behaviour, Max. And like I said, I don't think that you are asking forgiveness. I think you're showing off and you want to tell people your story, and I'm annoyed that we've helped with that matter. And because he's probably going, oh yeah, look at me, and it's just disgusting behaviour. I can't even go into this because I'll be here for a very long time, but you shouldn't have done it. Doesn't matter how young you are, it's not acceptable behaviour. Sisters and the mum, not forgiven ever. Thank you very much.
Brother Matthew.
And if Matt forgives, then I'm not talking to him ever again.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I mean, there's the gutter and then there's another gutter.
That is pretty low down. That said,
No.
well, I mean, it sounds pretty exhausting, doesn't it? Very exhausting. Quite a lot of Cluedo going on. A lot of lead piping in the conservatory, Colonel Mustard, etc.
Yeah, no.
So I wonder. I mean, which of us can? Well, I can honestly say this never happened to me. So I mean, how? Well, we all obviously. I mean, he's interested in forgiveness, isn't he? So
is he?
Is he though? Maybe he's not. No. So I'm struggling. I'll be honest with you, Max. I'm struggling. I don't think you're really that remorseful, and it all sounds a bit sleazy. And as I said at the start, too exhausting for me. Thanks. So no, I'm not going to forgive this time. Not forgiven this time.
Correct decision.
And because I want Susie to keep talking to me. Mainly.
The people's verdict, please. 61054. First word is Simon. Before we go any further, it's the people's verdict on tonight's confession, which came from Max, who seemed to spend an awful lot of time playing Cluedo with his girlfriend's sister, and his girlfriend's mother, and then his boss's wife.
Oh.
Anyway, the people's verdict. Here we go.
Not forgiven, says Ricky. No. This chap does not sound good at all. The girlfriend, then the sister, and then the mother. Shocking behaviour. Helen in Cornwall. Not forgiven. Hilarious, but unforgivable. But I've had a very long day as a beauty therapist, pampering clients, and this has made my day. Ellie May, aged 11. I totally do not forgive him. It gives me the ick.
Yes.
But finally, Dr. Ruth. Forgiven. You only live once.
I mean, as a defence, that's pretty lousy, Dr. Ruth. I wonder what you're a doctor of.
Oh dear.
Anyway, thank you. We had lots and lots and lots of verdicts tonight. And if you have a confession, we would love to hear it, please. I mean, we've done our 18 certificate.
Yeah,
Keep
no
it
more
12, really. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And it's a Mississippi Mud Pie. I only know that because of the Muppets, because they sang that song back in the day. I think I need and deserve something nice from the trolley. What do you have, Suze?
Well, I have something a bit interesting for you today. It's called a screwball.
Okay.
It's a throwback dessert sour inspired by the classic screwballs that you got from the Ice Cream Man. It is 6.5% though, so a bit pokey, and strawberry, raspberry, bubblegum flavours.
Okay, I'll have the water, thanks. But
it's delicious.
Okay.
It's like you could have it instead of the Mississippi Mud Pie.
Okay. But maybe not, because it'd be irresponsible. Today's confession comes from Minnie the Minx. Thanks, Minnie. It's not an 18 certificate like yesterday's. Good. Dear Father Simon, Brother Matthew with the infectious laugh, Sister Susie in the pub, and Sister Holly in the cupboard, says Minnie the Minx. After listening to this is clearly a podcast listener. After listening to your confessions for years, even when you were working for the other side, I thought it was about time I told you my confession. Cast your mind back to the 60s, if you will. I know some of you weren't born then, so it might be difficult, but please remember these were different times.
They were.
It will also depend on whether you have siblings, especially if you have sisters. I was the eldest of 3 girls, and I was in charge when our mum used to go next door to help our elderly neighbour and take any shopping round that she had got for her. Tracy was the annoying youngest sister.
Ugh.
And always wanted to join in whatever game we were playing. So we devised different ways to keep her off our backs. and out of the way. For instance, we developed our own secret language, so she had no idea what we were saying. Or we would only let her join in our games if she pretended she was a dog.
Okay.
Cruel, I know, but that's what we did. And then Minnie the Minx says different times.
Yeah.
I don't think cruelty to sisters counts as.
We can
different
still do that
times.
now,
Different
can't we?
times.
Yeah. That's fine.
Well, the day in question, you thought that was bad. We thought of the ultimate trick to play on her and keep her out of our hair so we could carry on playing with our grown-up games. But not like yesterday. I didn't mean that.
No.
She would just spoil our fun, and so we worked this out. This is what we did. I laid down on the rug and pretended I was dead. Then, middle sister said, "Look, Tracy, Linda's dead, so you'll have to go to the nearest phone box down the street and ring for an ambulance."
Right. Who's Linda? Oh, right. Okay.
Linda is Minnie the Minx. Okay, never mind. I didn't think of it.
Anyway.
Look, Tracy, Minnie is dead.
Minnie the Minx, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll have to go to the nearest phone box down the street and ring for an ambulance. No landline in those days.
No.
So off she ran, and we were busy congratulating ourselves how clever we'd been to get rid of her, when back she came, crying as she'd fallen over and cut her knee before she reached the phone box. So she had never made that important call and was surprised to see that I was alive again. Truly a miracle had occurred. Extraordinary scenes. We realised we'd gone too far and had to bribe Tracy for several weeks by giving her all of our pocket money so she didn't tell Mum and get us into trouble. Although we did confess to Mum years later, but Tracy still likes to tell everyone the story of when we talk about our childhood and growing up. So I could beg your forgiveness, please, because I want to say I've been officially forgiven. I hope anyone with younger siblings can relate to my story and understand, although I now realise it was wicked and cruel and could have been a waste of emergency services time, but it wasn't. So that's all right then.
Yeah.
I love your podcasts and listen to them when I am sewing and laugh out loud, even though I've already heard them during the week when I'm preparing dinner. My husband has your confessions book from years ago, so I have everything crossed. Well, I think these are all mitigating circumstances which might not work, frankly. But that line, "Look, Tracy, Linda's dead, so go and make a phone call to get the ambulance." What's the point if she's dead already? Sister Susie, what do you say?
Well, indeed. I should probably caveat this by saying I am the youngest sister, so I'm afraid, Minnie the Minx, I don't agree with you. I think it's a terrible thing to do to your younger sister. And also, if your mum was only next door, I'd be running to Mum straight away and not to the phone box down the road to phone the ambulance.
That's true.
And it is. Like, she must have been so... She thought you were dead. That's poor, traumatised little girl. No wonder she fell over. I understand you've learned the error of your ways, but I still can't forgive you just for being an older sister.
Yep, that seems fair enough, Brother Matthew.
Well, I was the eldest, and younger siblings, goodness me, didn't they get all the attention, which was totally unwarranted, and as far as I'm concerned, just because they're cuter and younger. So I'm going to forgive on this one. It all turned out well in the end. I mean, you know, she was dead, and then she wasn't dead, so that's great. It all works well. And
she was traumatised.
She was traumatised, and then she wasn't.
Also,
and then she got all of the pocket money for weeks after that. And tonight's story, a far more wholesome story about sisters than last night's, frankly.
Yes.
So for all of those reasons, I'm definitely going to forgive.
Sisters haven't come out very well, I don't
They
think,
haven't
this
really.
week, have they?
No.
Not really.
Okay, so it's the people's verdict, please, for Minnie, also known as Linda sometimes. On 61054, first word is Simon. And just before the news, we had a confession from Minnie the Minx, sometimes known as Linda, but it was sisters being horrible to each other, including playing dead to fool the youngest, who then runs off and she falls over. Anyway, the people's verdict, here it comes.
Not forgiven, says Jess in Chippenham. I feel sorry for the poor little sister. She just wanted to join in her sister's fun games. But Tom in London says, I've got to forgive this. She got all the pocket money, so it was a win-win in my book. And Drick says, I'm the youngest of 3 daughters, and my sisters used to play awful tricks on me, making me count to 1,000 while playing hide and seek when I couldn't even count to 100, then running away and watch me look for them until they grew bored. So no, not forgiven.
Absolutely, that is going to affect the way you're going to react to that confession. But maybe you have one of your own, in which case, don't sit on it. As someone, I believe, once said, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.